Everyone thought I'd marry the man I saved from a coma. His family praised me. His friends called me loyal. Even the doctors whispered about how touching my devotion was. But no one saw what happened when he opened his eyes. No one believed what I became after I left. This is the story of how I saved a man, and then saved myself. My name is Lin Yue. Once, I believed in destiny. I believed that if you gave your heart fully without condition, life would reward you. But life, as I learned, isn't always fair, especially when your love is used as a stepping stone. I met Shen Jihao when I was 23. He was everything I thought I wanted: charismatic, smart, adored. He asked me out on a rainy day when I forgot my umbrella. He shared his with that mischievous smile that made my heart skip. We dated for 2 years, and he proposed on my birthday. Everyone said we were a perfect match. But perfection is just a mask. 3 months before our wedding, Jihao was in a car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light. He fell into a coma. I gave up everything to stay by his side. My job, my friends, my health. His parents admired my loyalty. His younger sister, Sui, called me Sister Yue, but none of them saw the cracks. 2 years. That's how long I sat by Shen Jihao's side. I spoke to him every day, even when he couldn't answer. Read books to him, held his hand, watched him sleep pale and unmoving. And then, one morning, the nurse ran to me, her eyes wide. He opened his eyes. She said, "He's awake." My heart nearly stopped. I rushed in, trembling. He looked at me, and he said, "Who are you?" I smiled, thinking it was the anesthesia, but the days passed, and his memories came back except me. Or worse, he pretended not to remember. At first, I tried to stay hopeful. Maybe it's trauma, I told myself. Maybe he just needs time. But as the weeks went on, he didn't reach for me. He didn't smile. He barely acknowledged me when I brought him soup. He thanked the nurse instead. His mother, who once praised my loyalty, stopped returning my calls. His sister, Sui, posted pictures of Jihao with her, Su Wan, his college sweetheart. The girl he once cried over after she broke his heart. The girl he told me was long gone. Now she was back, and somehow, everyone was okay with it. Even happy. I confronted Sui gently. She smiled awkwardly. "Sister Yue, it's just complicated." Su Wan really helped him recover emotionally. You know, they were once so in love. So in love? What about me? I gave him years. I gave him my youth. I gave him my dreams. But none of that mattered. At the hospital celebration party, I wasn't even invited. I went anyway. Stood in the back, holding a wrapped gift. He laughed beside Zuan, his hand on her lower back. Someone whispered, "Isn't that Lin Yue?" Another voice answered, "Oh, I thought she left already." I left before the cake was cut. I sat alone on the curb, staring at the stars. How could love be so cruel? I didn't ask to be a saint. I only wanted to matter. But in that moment, I realized, to him, I was a placeholder, a backup, convenient when unconscious, disposable when healed. Not long after, I quit my job. My apartment lease ended. I went on a trip alone, hoping to find peace. Instead, I found a crash. A rainy road, slick tires, screeching metal, darkness, and silence. When I opened my eyes again, everything was different. I was back in my old bedroom. My old phone was ringing. It was my best friend, Gia. I blinked. The date showed. 5 years ago, I was alive, and I'd gone back. This time, I would not be the same girl. I sat up in bed, the morning light spilling through the curtains. My heart pounded in my chest. Was it a dream? A coma? Another chance? I grabbed my phone. There it was. The background I used before my engagement. The date. 5 years ago. 1 month before Shen Jihao's car accident. My chest tightened. I remembered everything. His betrayal, the hospital, Zhu Wan's return, the accident that ended my life. But now, I was back, and this time, I wouldn't live for someone else. The first thing I did was decline his dinner invite. Back then, I had gone happily smiling. Like a fool in love, this time, I sent a polite but firm text. Sorry, I'm focusing on work right now. Let's talk another time. That was the first moment of my freedom. The first line I drew for myself. He replied with a confused emoji and a question mark. I didn't answer. I poured my time into myself, into the hobbies I had long abandoned. Painting, writing, running in the morning mist. I picked up freelance design jobs online. With knowledge from my past life, I avoided the toxic boss I once worked under and found a better agency. Money came slowly, but it came clean. I ate healthier, dressed for myself, and smiled more often, not because someone was watching, but because I felt alive. Gia, my best friend, noticed first. Yue, you've changed, she said. Last time, you were always exhausted. Now you're glowing. My mother blinked when I suggested a weekend trip. You never made time before, she said, surprised. Even Shen Jihao noticed. He sent a message. Are you avoiding me? Did I do something wrong? I ignored it. Back then, I chased him for years. Now, he'd have to walk through fire to even see me. As I changed, the world changed around me. Jihao's accident never happened because I wasn't with him that night. Because I didn't beg him to meet me on that rainy street. Because I didn't throw myself into his problems. That night, he was home, and that changed everything. Around that time, I met Lu Chen. He was quiet, reserved, the new COO of a rival design firm. We met during a shared volunteer project at a children's charity. He wasn't flashy like Ji Hao. He didn't have smooth lines or charming jokes, but he listened. He noticed. He respected. When I spoke, he leaned in. When I doubted myself, he reminded me gently of my strength without pity, without pressure. We became friends. Then, maybe something more, and of course, just as I began to glow, Ji Hao returned. He waited outside my office. He held a bouquet and looked nervous. Yue, he said, you've been distant lately. I miss you. Let's talk. I looked him in the eyes. Once, those eyes melted me. Now, they meant nothing. I smiled at Ji Hao, a smile not of warmth but of closure. Ji Hao, I said calmly, we don't owe each other anything anymore. His eyes widened as if those words stunned him more than a slap. I didn't wait for a reply. I walked past him, heels clicking with purpose, heart steady. That evening, I met Lu Chen for coffee. He noticed my silence, handed me a warm cup without asking questions, and we sat quietly as the city buzzed around us. For the first time, I felt peace, not because someone filled the silence, but because someone respected it. The weeks that followed felt like a sunrise, slow but sure. I flourished at work, and my designs gained recognition. Lu Chen and I grew closer not through grand gestures, but through consistency, respect, and mutual admiration. Ji Hao messaged again, then called, then even tried to meet me at my apartment. I made a mistake, he said one night. I let go of the best thing in my life. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply replied, no, you let go of something you never truly saw. When Zhu Wan found out he was chasing me, she exploded online, calling me names, painting herself the victim. But the internet, this time, sided with me. People remembered my devotion during his coma years. The world was different now, and so was I. I didn't engage. I didn't need to. I was too busy building a life I loved. One day, Lu Chen quietly placed a sketchbook in front of me. Inside were drawings he'd made over the months, me reading in the park, laughing during meetings, sipping tea at his place. This is how I see you, he said. My heart ached not from pain, but something beautifully new. Not obsession, not desperation, just love. I finally realized that fate hadn't been cruel. It had just taken time to guide me to myself. But the past has a way of knocking when you least expect it. One bright afternoon, as I walked out of a meeting, I found Ji Hao standing by my office lobby again, this time disheveled, his eyes hollow. Yue, he pleaded, please, let's start over. I ended things with Zhu Wan. He looked nothing like the man I once worshipped. the confidence, the ease, it had all crumbled. But most of all, he looked lost. Not for me, but for the stability I once gave him. I didn't feel pity. I felt distance, like watching a chapter from an old book I'd long stopped reading. I've moved on, I said, not with cruelty, but with certainty. I don't need to go backward to prove I've grown. That night, I curled up on the couch beside Lu Chen, who didn't need to ask what happened. He simply handed me his hoodie and let me rest my head on his shoulder. There were no grand declarations, no urgent confessions, just peace. But peace didn't mean everything was perfect. My mother still didn't quite understand why I rejected the once perfect son-in-law. Old colleagues gossiped, speculating that I only succeeded because of Lu Chen's status. Su Wan even tried to sue me over a supposed defamation blog post written by someone else entirely, but none of it shook me, because I had something unshakable now: clarity. I knew who I was, I knew what I wanted, and most importantly, I knew what I would never accept again. One evening, as I stood on a rooftop event celebrating a major design award I just won, Ji Hao showed up again, this time alone, watching me from afar. He didn't approach. Maybe he finally understood. Or maybe he realized the truth too late. The girl he abandoned had been reborn into a woman he could never reach again. I took a deep breath, the city lights reflecting in my glass. Lu Chen walked over and kissed my temple. "Ready to go?" he asked. I nodded. "Let's go home." And just like that, I left the ghost of my past standing in the crowd, fading into the noise. As I walked toward the life I chose with open eyes, a steady heart, and love that didn't hurt to hold, months passed, and the quiet happiness I shared with Lu Chen settled into something deep and grounding. We moved in together not because we needed to, but because it felt right. Every morning began with shared silence and warm tea, and every night ended with laughter over little things: forgotten groceries, his terribly off-key humming, my obsession with crime dramas. It wasn't the fireworks kind of love I used to chase, it was the sunrise kind. Gentle, steady, undeniable. Meanwhile, Ji Hao faded from the public eye. Word spread that his business deals were faltering, his once pristine image now clouded by rumors and Zhu Wan's social media meltdowns. People began piecing things together. Some even reached out to me privately, apologies from old friends, quiet acknowledgments from those who once doubted me. But I didn't need their validation. I had already validated myself. Then, one autumn afternoon, Lu Chen took me to a lakeside cabin, just the two of us. The air was crisp, the trees painted in gold. We sat on the dock, our feet bare, dangling above the water. He reached into his coat, pulled out a small velvet box, and opened it with the calmest, most sincere expression I had ever seen. "I don't want to rescue you, Yue," he said, "because you never needed rescuing. I just want to walk beside you for however long you'll let me." Tears welled in my eyes, not because I felt overwhelmed, but because, for once, everything felt just right. I said yes, not out of hope or fear, but out of certainty. And as we hugged, the wind carrying laughter across the lake, I knew that I had truly changed my fate. Not by waiting for a miracle, but by becoming one for myself. The wedding was nothing like the grand spectacle I once dreamed of. It was better, intimate, soft, filled with laughter and the quiet joy of people who truly cared. I wore a simple white dress, no extravagant train or diamonds, just elegance and ease. My mother cried during the vows, not from sadness, but from relief. She had watched me break once, and now she saw me whole. Jia stood by my side, smiling through tears, whispering, "You really did it, Yue. You turned the story around." As I looked at Lu Chen, who held my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world, I didn't think of Ji Hao or Zuwan or the hospital nights. They were shadows, part of a past that no longer controlled me. Still, some ghosts have to knock one last time before fading for good. A letter came a week after the wedding, no return address, just my name in careful handwriting. Inside was a single line, I'm sorry I couldn't love you the way you deserved. No name, no plea, just closure. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Instead, I tucked it into the back of an old sketchbook, the one Lu Chen gave me, between drawings of quiet smiles and stolen moments, not out of nostalgia, but as proof of how far I'd come. That girl who sat by a coma bed hoping for scraps of affection was gone. In her place stood a woman who built her peace, her love, her life with her own two hands. Every now and then, people still ask about the story. Didn't you once save a man who forgot you? They whisper. I smile gently. Yes, I say. And then I remembered myself. Life after the wedding didn't turn into a fairy tale, it became something even more precious. Real. There were days when Lu Chen and I argued over small things, like who forgot to take the laundry out, or which route to take to avoid traffic. But even in those ordinary moments, there was never fear, never silence, never walking on eggshells. We talked, we listened, we grew together. I continued to thrive in my design career, eventually opening my own boutique firm. My name, once overlooked and undervalued, now sat proudly on the front of a minimalist glass building in the heart of the city, US studio. Clients came not just for my work, but for my story, a woman who found her strength by walking away from what didn't serve her. One day, during a university seminar where I'd been invited to speak, a young girl stood up and asked nervously, "How do you know when it's time to stop trying for someone you love?" I paused, remembering the years I spent clinging to Ji Hao, waiting for a miracle that never came. When loving them starts to feel like losing yourself, I said softly, "That's when it's time." The room fell silent, but the kind of silence that sits heavy with truth. Afterward, she came up to me, hugged me tightly, and whispered, "Thank you." And in that moment, I realized that my story wasn't just mine anymore. It was a lantern for others, those who were still trapped in the dark. I didn't need the world to applaud me. I didn't need revenge or vindication. I had love, purpose, peace, and that was more than enough. Years passed, and the seasons folded gently over our lives like well-loved pages of a book. Lu Chen and I built a home filled with warmth and quiet joys, a tiny garden on the balcony where I grew lavender, a shelf full of sketchbooks and design drafts, and weekend breakfasts made lazily in our pajamas. We didn't need extravagance. We had each other. Sometimes, when the wind rustled the curtains or the rain tapped gently on the windows, I would think of the woman I used to be. The girl who waited in hospital corridors, clung to unanswered messages, and begged to be seen, not with bitterness, but with grace. She had done her best. She had loved deeply, but I was no longer her. One spring afternoon, while sorting through old boxes to make space in our closet, I stumbled upon a photo, a snapshot of me and Ji Hao from years ago. I almost didn't recognize myself. The way I leaned toward him, the uncertainty in my eyes. I stared at it for a moment, then placed it quietly into a folder labeled past and slid it to the back of the drawer. That part of my life didn't deserve to be destroyed, it deserved to be remembered, so I'd never forget how far I had come. Later that evening, Lu Chen found me on the balcony, sipping tea, wrapped in an old cardigan. He kissed the top of my head and asked, "What were you thinking about?" I smiled. "About how lucky I am," I said. He laughed. "We both are, and we were. Because happiness doesn't come from chasing people who never choose you. It comes when you finally choose yourself." One crisp winter evening, as snow gently dusted the windowsills, I sat beside Lu Chen, watching the fireplace crackle in our living room. It had been a long year. My firm expanded. He had closed a major acquisition, and we were finally slowing down to breathe. That night, as we sipped hot chocolate in silence, he said something that stayed with me forever. "You know, Yue, loving you is like watching the tide. Quiet, powerful, constant." I didn't reply with words. I just took his hand and held it tightly, silently thanking the universe for this second chance, not just at love, but at life. That same week, I received a message from an old acquaintance. Apparently, Ji Hao had left the city. His company had folded after a series of poor decisions. Su-won had vanished from social media. He was living quietly somewhere up north, far from the limelight he once craved. And for the first time since my rebirth, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vengeance, no ache. Just calm detachment. He was a chapter. I was the author who had closed the book. In time, Lu Chen and I traveled to small towns, collected quiet memories, hosted dinners with close friends. Our life wasn't perfect, it was honest. Full of little apologies, surprise notes tucked into coat pockets, burnt toast followed by laughter. It was exactly what I used to dream of, back when I thought love only came through sacrifice. I learned that true love doesn't demand you bleed to prove your worth. It sees your wounds and still says, "You are enough," and I was. Finally, completely, unquestionably enough, life settled into a rhythm I never dared to imagine during those dark days beside Ji Hao's hospital bed. Lu Chen and I began planning for the future, not just the next project or the next holiday, but something bigger. One chilly spring morning, we visited an adoption center, holding hands tightly as we met shy children with hopeful eyes. The idea of building a family filled me with a warmth that had nothing to do with passion but everything to do with love, steady, unconditional, and real. Friends and family celebrated with us, their faces shining with genuine joy. For once, I wasn't just the girl who lost everything. I was the woman who built everything. And as I rocked a tiny baby in my arms for the first time, I whispered a silent promise not to repeat the mistakes of my past, but to nurture a new legacy of love and strength. In those quiet moments, I understood the true meaning of rebirth, not just living again, but living better. I had saved myself from heartbreak, from pain, from fading away. Now, I was saving someone else with the kind of love I had always deserved. And that was the most beautiful story I could ever tell. Sometimes, life gives you a second chance not to fix the past, but to rewrite your future. I saved him once, when he was lost in darkness. But the greatest rescue was saving myself. Because love isn't about sacrifice or waiting in silence. It's about knowing your worth, standing tall, and choosing a life that honors your heart. If you're listening to this and feeling trapped by a love that no longer serves you, remember, you have the power to change your fate. You deserve a love that sees you, cherishes you, and grows with you. This is my story, one of heartbreak, rebirth, and ultimately hope. And if I can walk out of the shadows, so can you. Thank you for watching. If you watched till the end, please comment end, so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought, and share with your nearest and dearest. 1. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, spread love.